Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be doing my pros and cons video for the Star Wars Canon books. I'm going to be talking about the things that really work for the canon continuity right now, and some of the things that don't really work and kind of hinder it a little bit. I have a companion video that recently came out that deals with the same issue but for the Legends line. Please go check that out. And I'm going to repeat my caveats that I put in that video here as well because I want to be very clear about this. I love the Star Wars Legends books. I love the Star Wars Canon books. I love Star Wars books. And I really enjoy getting to talk about them. I do not like when the fandom gets divulged into this war of the two factions against each other. Canon fans versus Legends fans, and there is exclusivity between the two. I'm the same way with Star Wars versus Star Trek. I love both universes. I love getting to read both. Same with the timelines for Star Wars and the eras that they were published in. And I really enjoy the canon, but I have problems with it. I really enjoy Legends, but I have problems with it. And I'm just here to provide a general discussion. And so I'm going to provide in this video 4 pros that I see in the canon and 4 cons that I see in the canon. And you might see a pro of mine and say, no, that's why I don't like the canon. That's totally understandable. You might see one of my cons and might say, but that's what I like about the canon. So this is just my interpretation, my understanding of the canon books, and I just want to have a little bit of a dialogue behind it, and it's going to be fun, and I'm sure there will be no hateful comments down in the comments section below. So, to begin with, let's talk about my pros of the canon. I always like starting with pros. Always start with pros. My first pro of the book of the canon is it is easy to jump into. This was an issue that the Legends books had that I think the canon is better at. Because there are A, so many standalone books, and B, there is this separated nature of the canon, it is super easy to jump into. You can, unless it's part of a series, like the High Republic or something, you can pretty much jump into any canon novels without having read any other canon novels, and you're going to be set. You're going to understand what's happening. The author's going to give you everything you need to know. It's going to be lots of fun. Bam, here you go. And there's also this sense that all the authors have, that one of my favorite authors, John Jackson Miller, he's written for both, and he puts this in all of his books, and a lot of other authors do this as well, that they say, you know, I want every book is someone's first, so no matter what, authors will try to make it in such a way that it is understandable for first-time readers who have literally never picked up a Star Wars book before. And I really feel that they've nailed that in the canon. A lot of books do that in the EU too. I'm not knocking the EU that the EU didn't do that, but I think the canon books do it a little bit better because of that. So they're really easy to jump into. And I have really been able to get friends of mine to start reading Star Wars books who had never started Star Wars books before because of the canon, because of how easy they were and what the plethora of options there were in the canon. And that's my second pro, is that there is a wide array of tastes and styles in the canon. If you want a romance novel featuring star-crossed lovers, then I give you Lost Stars. I want a Clone Wars novel that feels like it is just the Clone Wars on the page. I give you Dark Disciple. I want a dark, gritty Mad Max Fury Road novel that has horror elements. I give you Phasma. I want a fun group gathering, kind of like Rebels, swashbuckling crew who is, you know, not meaning to save the day, but just kind of happens to. Well, I give you the Aftermath trilogy. I want a hardcore pilot-based series. I give you the Alphabet Squadron series. And you might say, I just want some teeny bopper stuff. There's that too. There are so many options in the canon that all your genre, subgenre tastes will be met by some type of book. There is a book for everyone in the canon. If you want a hardcore mystery, the Thrawn trilogy kind of serves as a mystery book. You know, if you just want prequel nostalgia, there is this book, Brotherhood, that just came out. All the prequel nostalgia in that book. There are books for everyone in the canon. There are books for a lot of people in the Legends line, but I don't think that the authors were as intentional to be as diverse with the styles in the Legends. Legends overall had this, you read a lot of Legends books back to back, you will feel this kind of sameness to them that you will notice when you read them all. I read a lot of them back to back in like 2017, 2018, 2019, back when we didn't have as many canon books and when there were still a lot of EU books in used bookstores that I could gobble up for $1 or $2. I noticed this sameness that ran over a lot of the tones. But you read a lot of the canon books together, you're going to get such different tones, you won't feel too much sameness unless you're reading the same author over and over. That might be the case. But even then, authors like Claudia Gray, her adult books are very different than her young adult books. And so she even has very good wide range, as do other authors. And with this kind of new tastes, it is easy to get all different types of fans involved. I think I could easily get people who are in their 40s or 50s to get into some Star Wars books because there are a few canon novels that I think really work for them. Same with getting little kids. I think there are some great, even in the adult novel section, there are still some great adult novels that I think really work for kids. And so I think that wide array of tastes and subgenres really is helpful in building a wider audience potentially for the books. My third pro is that it is interconnected. ... But not too much. The EU was super interconnected. You could not jump into the New Jedi Order without having read a bunch of other books. Or you could not read iJedi without reading the Jedi Academy because it would spoil each other, and they were written in different orders, and there was a lot of this interconnectedness that made it so interconnected that it was super hard to not get spoiled by something. The canon is lightly interconnected. Here's an example. Rey Sloane, who is one of the villains in A New Dawn, shows up in the Aftermath trilogy. You have characters from the Aftermath books that show up in Last Shot and in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. There is a literary device used in the Aftermath trilogy that also is interconnected with the Phasma novel. There are references between the book Battlefront Inferno Squad and the Clone Wars. There are interconnectedness between the new novel Brotherhood and the novel Master and Apprentice. But it's not so much that you feel overwhelmed by it at all. I think that it really is easy to get into any of these books if you're new, but if you're well read, you're like, ooh, I see that, and that makes sense to that, and that connects to that, and oh my goodness, that character showed up. I haven't seen them in forever. But if you had never read that other book, you're not going to notice that you hadn't noticed them forever. They're going to feel like a new character. So it really works as a way that it's interconnected. The authors are working together, but it's not super interconnected. And me, I'm someone that I love, as a reader, I enjoy super interconnected because I read every Star Wars novel. But I get that most of the fan base doesn't. So we have to be more careful in the way we build the timeline, that it's not super connected. And I think that the canon does that really well. And getting into my fourth pro is that they're starting to find their overarching footing with the High Republic. A lot of the cons that I have are starting to be fixed with the High Republic, because the High Republic has really done a good job of telling a big overarching story like the Legends did, but at the same time having a different tastes. There's adult novels, there's middle grade, there's young adult, there's comics, there's kids books, there's everything. You don't have to like the young adult High Republic novels to like the adult High Republic novels. You don't have to like the kids' picture books to like the comics. There are things for everyone in the High Republic, and yet it still has that overarching big epic story that if you want that, you can get that in the High Republic. And they're getting wide different styles. The style of Cavan Scott is very different than the style of Daniel Jose Older, which is very different than the style of Justina Ireland, and they're all working on one series together. So I really like where the High Republic is going. I still need to see the entirety of the High Republic to know if it's as good or better than some of the Legends books, or if it's worse than the Legends books. I still need more time. But it seems to be heading in a good direction that I really appreciate. And so that's my fourth pro. Now to get into my cons. These are, again, my view of the cons. You might view them as pros yourself, but let's get into them. The books are more character-driven than plot-driven. So many of the canon books are small scale. It was so frustrating reading book after book after book where it feels like you could read the book cover to cover and it had no lasting impact on the timeline or on the Star Wars mythos. There were so many, especially in the early part of the canon, but so many books here which just feel like standalone. They have no matter. Now, they actually do have matter if you're really focused and notice all the little details, but they really aren't like, the Thrawn books where big things are happening, or the New Jedi Order where big things, like, it's mostly really tiny things that are happening. And so as someone who's more of a plot-driven reader than characters, I'm not saying that characters shouldn't have good stories. Characters should have good stories, but you really need a good overarching plot for it to work, and a lot of the canon books don't work on that level. The plots seem to meander because they can't step on anything. So many of the post-Return of the Jedi books in the canon for so long did not explore that much because they were afraid of stepping on the toes of the movies. Now that that's done, they have more free reign, but now Mandalorian is taking over, so they can't really discuss anything in the mid-range, around the Mandalorian timeline for fear of messing with that. So there is this kind of fear that they have of going big, so they all are focusing really small. That's why the High Republic went 200 years in the past. They're like, all right, we're going where no one's going to mess with us. It works for them, but it's sad that they have to feel that they need to do that they can't tell a big story like that in the post-Return of the Jedi series. Here's the second con that I have is it's some of the styles are too exclusive. I talked about having a wide array of the books. You have romance novels, adventure novels, horror novels, kids books, adult books. You have all sorts of books and genres and subgenres. Some of them are starting to get too exclusive, I think. Here's one example. The Padme trilogy. As it went along, it got harder and harder and harder for the general audience to read that book. It got to the point where you had a super niche part of the fandom that was liking that book series. And as a result, I didn't enjoy reading the books as they went along because it felt like the author was purposefully pushing me out, saying, I don't want you as the reader of this book because you don't agree with me, you don't have the same worldview as me, and you're not like me in personality. So that has happened with a few other books, I feel like, in the canon. And so some of the other books as well, not just E.K. Johnston's books, but some of the other books in the canon have had that same exclusivity feel. By no means is it all the books in the canon. I do think most of the books still do work well for everyone, but there are some books that are starting to get into that realm, particularly on the YA line. I particularly think that the YA books for Star Wars just aren't as good for me as the adult novels, because the adult novels really have that universal appeal, and the YA books are starting to get to, you have to be this specific type of reader to enjoy them. And that can be a problem, I think, because if you tick off the fan base by making books that they shouldn't be reading, it makes people mad. So that's a very dicey subject, but it is one of the cons I have. Here's the third con that I have, which is the misleading connection to the movies. When the canon was announced, it was announced that, this is all the new stuff's going to be canon, it's going to have importance, it's going to connect to everything, and there's not going to be a tier system like there was in Legends. It's just going to be everything's canon now that comes out. And so there was this expectation that everything that started to come out was going to have connections and was going to have big references, and that the movies were going to be driven by the books, which was a very poor. I think that what they got was a good thing, but the way they marketed it really set expectations wrong. When Force Awakens was coming out, a lot of people were excited for Aftermath because Aftermath is going to give us all these answers. Aftermath didn't give that many answers. It's an entertaining book, but it didn't give the answers people were looking for, and I think that really ticked a lot of people off. And also, the what we got is in The Mandalorian, we got Cobb Vanth, who's in Aftermath. He's a character from Aftermath who got to jump into the movies. That is the type of connection that they were meaning when they were saying that everything's going to be canon, and when they were meaning that everything's going to connect. That's what they meant, is that there's a potential that a character might jump from a book to a movie, they might make a reference to the event of a book, but there was this high expectation that everything from the books was going to have massive importance on the people making the movies, and you just know J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson and everyone else, even Jon Favreau, they're not reading all of the books. They have busy lives. They're big Star Wars fans, don't get me wrong, but they're not super geeks like the rest of us. So they're not getting involved in everything. And so they were never expected to. And you had the story group, which was trying super hard. I feel bad for the story group because they get flack for this, but they were trying super hard to try to make everything work and make all the continuity and everything work together. And some higher ups just weren't having it. But they put that unreasonable expectation. Here's another reason that unreasonable expectation was there was you had the Ahsoka novel, which was a great book. Loved the Ahsoka novel. One of my favorite YA books in this canon, if not my favorite YA book. But the Clone Wars Season 7 completely contradicts the opening of Ahsoka. Now, that's okay because the Clone Wars season, there's a 6 or 7, the ending of the Clone Wars was utterly fantastic. The last 4 episodes with the Siege of Mandalore was brilliantly produced. But they didn't know they were going to get to produce those when they produced Ahsoka, the novel, and so they let E.K. Johnston, she had a general idea of what was going to happen, but they let her write the story, and so she wrote one thing, and then that got completely disregarded in the TV show. And I understand the externality reason why that had to happen, and more people will watch the show than read the book, Ahsoka. I get it. I totally get it. But you promised us it was going to be interconnected and it was going to be canon. How can you have discrepancies between books that are that big? You know, in Ahsoka, the lightsabers are green. And in the movie, in the TV show, they're blue. That's a major problem. And it feels like they're going back on their promise. And so the expectations, the misleading connection to the main stuff was, I think, a little bit poorly done. They could have handled it better in the announcement and in the way that they've treated it since. They've tried to downplay the word canon, the idea of canon recently, because they're just saying, look, everyone just have fun with everything. Just have fun. Here's a new story. Read the story. Have fun with it. Make Easter eggs. Yeah, connect the Easter eggs, but have fun with it, which I think is the right way to do it. But they didn't prep us well enough for that, I think. And here's my fourth problem with the canon con is that it suffers from the same pedestal problem that the EU does, which is that people are super. There is this faction-like difference where you can like canon or you can like legends, but you can't like both. And most of the people I'm friends with like both, but I see so much discourse where it's exclusive this or exclusive that. I think there are a lot more people who are exclusively Legends fans than there are people who are exclusively canon fans. I definitely think there's a big disparity, at least online from what I've seen. But there is, I do see exclusive canon people, and you're missing out on so much storytelling and so much enjoyment that I think that you're losing sight of what makes Star Wars books so much fun, which is that we're getting to tell a Star Wars story. It doesn't matter whether it's in the Legends line or it's in the Star Wars line. You're getting a Star Wars novel, or the canon line. If you're getting a Star Wars novel, I have fun with that. That's the same reason why I enjoy a lot of the Star Trek books. There are so many contradictions between the Star Trek books. Oh, because there's 700 Star Trek novels. But I enjoy them because I'm going to read a Star Trek novel. That's a lot of fun. And it's really disheartening when I see on either side when people are like, I just won't read that book because it's not canon. I only will read the canon. Or I won't read that book because it is in the canon and I only read Legends. And it's really disheartening to see that divide in the fandom. And I just wish more people would see the fun that there is in reading everything. And I have lots of fun reading stuff. So those are my pros and cons of the canon. Again, I love so much about the canon, and some of my favorite books are in the canon. Love Master and Apprentice. Love Light of the Jedi. I love Thrawn. I love Brotherhood, which just came out, which is fantastic. But there are some cons that I have to admit. I can't look at anything through rose-colored glasses. Same with Legends. There's stuff about Legends I love, stuff about Legends I don't love. So if you have any thoughts, let me know down in the comments below. Please, please, please be respectful of everyone. I want this to be a productive conversation and not hate-filled or angry or anything. I know that there's tensions about it, but let's be very respectful if possible. But let me know your comments down below, and please subscribe for more Star Wars videos and other types of book-related videos. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.